Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co-host, Susanna, and I'm here with...
Hey, Grievelings and Frightlings, it's Margaret and Anna. What colorful movie are we talking about today?
Well, boys and ghouls and everyone else who is being haunted under the moon, time to put on your dancing shoes. No, not the sparkly 6-inch platforms that we want to wear. Get your ballet flats ready and also some toe tape, because we're about to talk about Suspiria.
Ooh, trigger warnings.
Witchcraft. Fun, creative kills. Gorgeous, stunning visuals. Animal attack. Abuse of the blind. Missing children, but only in the original. Abuse of wealth, abuse of power. Gaslighting. What else?
Poisoning, grooming, death. And in the second one, war and political conflict. And in both of them, religious themes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, let's dive right in. The original is part of a trilogy. And yes, just so you guys know, we will be talking about the Three Mothers trilogy in an upcoming cast. We will be watching Mother of Tears and Inferno. But for today, we're going to compare and contrast the original Suspiria with the remake. The original follows our protagonist, Susie, as she goes into this prestigious dance school. All these weird, bizarre things start happening. She's trying to make sense of it. And then at some point, we find out that the leader is essentially this huge, witchy mother of the coven, and she must be destroyed. So the remake is a little bit different. We still have the dance school. The protagonist still remains Susie, but she comes from a much more traumatic childhood and situation in life. She gets accepted into the dance school. Once again, some strange things start happening. However, once we realize that who we think is this super powerful witch needs to be destroyed is not really the one in power, some things start to shift and they're a little bit different.
Yes. Ooh, thank you for that synopsis. So, starting with Argento's film, he has a way of using music and color where the beginning of the film can be a bit almost like disorienting, and it's like a lot to take in visually and like audibly. So I guess we should have put that in the trigger warnings. This movie, it's in a way, it's like assaultive and alluring. And before this, I had tried to watch this movie a couple times, like over the years. And there was something about the beginning where I couldn't get through it. And then finally, I was like, I'm going to watch it. Because my partner also struggled. So I think the two of us together, like, let's not watch it. So then by myself, I'm able to. And then it was like, wow, like this movie is so visually stunning. Like as you watch it, every scene, maybe not every scene, but there are just these pops of color. How he uses color to tell a story are beautifully. So it's hard when you watch this one, especially when you watch them close together. So I will warn listeners and viewers, watching them close together, the remake can be really hard because it's stark. You don't have these like,
it's beige,
where your senses are emerged in the story. It's very mundane, it's very subtle. The colors are, there's not a lot there to, or even the soundtrack. I couldn't even tell you. I didn't remember the soundtrack for the second one.
Yeah, it just,
Yeah.
For me, the original is much better. I cannot wait to see the other two of the trilogy. Recently, we just discovered that it was part of a trilogy and there are two more. So super excited about that. Huge fan of Argento as well. As Margaret mentioned, the visuals are stunning. Even the visuals and the creativity of the kills are great. I mean, much like a scene we've discussed from another movie, Saw 2, the barbed wire, I could feel in that scene. And it's
Yes.
really hard to achieve that in film where your audience feels what is going on. And I just thought that was great. I thought it was super creative too.
Yes, that was going to be like a question. Is actually one of my questions, like most memorable, best kill. And right there, it's you see that and you're already feeling her pain. You're already wanting her to do something different in that
Absolutely.
hopelessness and that despair. And it's always, maybe not always, but I love when I can see, when I'm watching a movie and I go, oh, this is what inspired this creator. I can see now where this influenced future films. I wish I could say that more about these two, where we could see where the original really did inspire the retelling. Anna and I touched on this before, and I'll bring it up now. The muddying of the story in the second one. I appreciate they wanted to bring up religious trauma and war trauma, but then bringing in the therapist's backstory, I found it confusing. I didn't know whose story I was supposed to be paying attention to. And sadly, I don't know about you, I didn't really want to know. Actually, I wanted to know, oh, what's her name? The actress in the beginning who's seen the therapist who is like having a psychotic break because of what's happening at the dance school. I would have loved to know her story. I would have loved to follow her journey. We don't. She disappears, and then we're just stuck with these stories that I didn't have a lot of investment in. You?
Yeah, that I feel the same way. I think for me, especially that particular era, World War One, World War Two, if I want to watch a movie about that, then I'll select a movie about that. I do have a difficult time. One of my grandfathers did serve in World War Two. Um, he was in a very intense situation. So I have a lot of strong feelings about that. Also related to that era Germany as well. So I think for me, I was like, that already put a damper on the film to start with. I was like, really? Like, you couldn't think of anything else? And I was like, if you're remaking it, why don't you remake it modern day and talk about the pressures that dancers face and how that translates into women's control of our bodies and how non-feminine facing people want to exact that control. And it really could have been something great. The other kind of gripe I have about the remake is at the end when we discover that Susie is apparently, Suspirian or whatever, but that translates to Mother of Sorrows. However, this whole archetype that has been developed through the entire movie is someone who was abused, was living in a family full of religiosity that's escape, that stands for being who you are, stands for something and rescue and love. And yet she destroys the non-believers that voted for the other person. She doesn't bring Madame Blanc back. All of these kind of things that you would associate with a protagonist with a good heart and kind intention doing, they don't happen. So I just don't, it didn't really line up for me. I think that her being could have been a separate entity who was mother of something else. Also, Suspiria does not translate directly to the word sorrow, so I think it got a little weird, but not good weird for me. And then also the original, I do have a couple of things. I do love the fact that Albert the nephew, is there, because that's a nod to Spalding in American Horror Story Coven. He's a nod to Albert, I guess I should say. But here we have a coven of witches, and they have a child there, which he's probably going to grow up and be a warlock. But the fact that they're not killing him or eating him was really refreshing to see. However, the gentleman who was the piano player that had the seeing eye dog, I do have to argue with that, because even if the dog were a hellhound, you can only be a hellhound in specific scenarios, and witches do not possess hellhounds. So there's no way that that dog would have even gone to the school in the first place, because it would have sensed the evil intention. So that's my argument to that. But once again, horror nerd here, folklore nerd. I think that the dog would have been more liable to rip one of the coven members' throats out from the get-go than its own owners. But what do I know?
Ooh, you touch on so many fabulous points. So going back to like the two of them, you bring up an awesome point of Argento's is about, which a lot of which movies are about, suppression of the feminine, the rediscovering of the feminine, how the feminine has to rebel, how the feminine is perceived, which his does. Then the remake has to start muddying in the masculine by bringing in the masculine therapist story, when this is a feminine tale. And viewers, listeners, if you disagree, please share with us like where that is. As you talk about the dog, I take the dog, right? He's a blind man's dog. So the dog has been oppressed. It has to perform a duty. So it can't do its normal dog thing, because we see when the blind man's like walking through that big open area, the dog is there. The dog's like, something's off, something's not. I can sense danger here because this is my job. But if I'm at the school, my job is to lay there and be basically like, submissive, obedient. Which we could say, women are taught to be submissive, obedient. And here they are in an environment where they don't have to, yet they're grooming other women. It gets complicated. Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, it really does. And I think the visuals though are so stunning, even though I don't particularly care for the kill with the blind gentleman and the seeing eye dog, because, you know, two things that don't make me super happy to see. You know, abuse of someone with a disability and abuse of an animal, essentially. But the visuals are stunning. Like you said, where they're walking, just all of these things going on. There's not a moment in that entire film that's visually offensive in terms of the art and the pops of color, and it's just beautiful. And also, where's Albert in the remake? Like, he just doesn't exist now.
No, well, it felt like, I'm jump in, or like maybe you see this differently. It also felt like the remake wanted to explore female sexuality, and we see that through Susie and the main dance instructor. Like, it feels like there was allude to feminine love there, and that still got confusing, because again, it felt like the remake was trying to put way too much in. I would have much rather it be a retelling, take out the therapist story, and now let's look at a young dancer exploring her sexuality, where now she's with a bunch of women, and how she's feeling about herself as a gay young woman, or that would have been a better retelling of the movie.
Absolutely. Or even like in the original, how the one guy at the school like has a crush on Susie or whatever. Okay, let's eliminate, like you said, the therapist, and then have that same dynamic in the remake. But she's coming from this abusive situation where we assume that a lot of masculine faced issues happen, and she's like, I'm independent, I don't need anyone, I'm gonna work on myself. And then she discovers the greatness of her powers and who she really is as this amazing sorceress, and brings all this positivity to everyone in the school and helps them with their lives. Okay, so Hollywood, Hallmark,
Yes.
we can come up with we'll turn
Mhm.
this Suspiria remake into a trilogy, and then we'll have these two movies in addition. You know, love your independence and explore and discover who you are.
Yes. I wanted to hear your thoughts. So in the first one, dance is, it felt like it was a feminine expression. The
Mm-hmm.
expression of the beauty of the feminine flow. It felt like the
Mm-hmm.
second one took that, but then also wanted it to be more violent in a way. I'm not sure, like, what was your take
Yeah.
on how dance was portrayed and the role of dance in
Mhm.
both films?
Yeah. I feel like it was definitely, I agree with you about the original, that it was more of just expression. It was sustaining the school. It was a beautiful art. It was essentially what everyone at the school lived for, whether they were a coven member or not. And then in the remake, I feel like there was some sort of attempt at commentary on the dance world and how it's not glamorous, how there is so much damage to your body and all of this pressure, but it didn't quite get to the hurt hole.
Yes. Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that you bring up, right, how, so again, the second one is trying to make too many commentaries. It needed to
Yeah.
pick a lane. If you wanted, like Anna said
Mm-hmm.
earlier, to make comments about dance society, about how female bodies are treated, the violence that is perpetrated on them through
Mm-hmm.
the art of dance and what they do to their bodies, tell that story. Then you could have also brought
Mm-hmm.
in her sexuality and all of these things. And again, I appreciate the therapist story. That needed to be a whole other movie. That confused it too much,
Yeah.
because then we also take the trauma of our first character, who's a famous actress whose name I'm forgetting.
Mm-hmm.
Her trauma, her story gets overshadowed by this male's story. And his, when again, to Anna and I, this feels like a story about the feminine and the masculine's impact on that, not, and it feels like that
Mm-hmm.
happens in life. Maybe that's a problem when a woman is telling her story, then a man has to come in and dominate the story. I don't know.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
absolutely. Well, and I think that I will say the sequel, or not the sequel, but the remake of Suspiria this year, of the films I've seen, it is right up there with Anora. However, my thought is if they would mash up the two. So you're at this prestigious dance school, except, oh, girl, you just left your abusive family and you have no money. You're going to have to work it to pay your tuition. So at night, the basement of the dance school not only has a hidden coven meeting room, it also has a hidden champagne room. And then that brings the violence of the dance way more into it. And that also would constitute how the coven is making a ton of money sustaining themselves, and the pressures for feminine facing persons in the world and also the dance world. See, that could have been I would have watched that and enjoyed it. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, because the
Yeah.
second one just muddied it. And like you said, going back
Mm-hmm.
to, right, Suspiria, who she is. She's
Yeah.
ancient, she's old, so now you want us to
Mm-hmm.
believe that she's Susie, not the dance
Right.
instructor,
Mm-hmm.
not any of the other witches. Like, again, the original has that visceral, when you see her,
Yeah.
like, behind that curtain and you hear her raspy breath,
Mm-hmm.
and like the getting rid of the old to bring in the new metaphor
Yeah.
there. And again, the new one changed that metaphor.
Yeah.
And even if it was about her being freed from her religious trauma, from her
Mm-hmm.
backstory. it didn't seem like she was freed. It felt like she just got imprisoned in a different ideology.
Absolutely, like from one to another. And I think too, if we really look at it from, a thanatological, educated perspective in terms of religious basis, when someone is nominated for sainthood, when someone is nominated as an official martyr, they essentially are willing to die for the cause, right? So I feel like Susie has not put her head on the chopping block. She's willing to kill to ascend to whatever her greatness is, but I don't see a lot of her coming in and being like, oh, I have these ideals. Let's change the school. Let's do this. Let's support everyone. Let's do these sorts of things. I feel like to me, the remake completely missed out on the female empowerment dynamic, because even the coven members, the teachers, they're not very nice. I feel like they're, bewitching people, they're humiliating people, they're kind of participating in those really negative behaviors associated with witchcraft that we see so much in horror. Whereas the original, something's up, but there's also almost like a family dynamic between the coven members, and kind of this whole like, we have to sustain, we have to take care of our leader, we have to do what we have to do, and that dedication. Whereas the remake, you have a divided house already during the vote.
Yes. Ooh, thank you for bringing that up. And that reflection, right, of taking care of the old, honoring the old as they are working with how do they honor the new, or what does that mean for them? And again, the remake struggled with that balance and didn't even hold that balance too. I don't even think that there was anything about the old except for Susie's religious trauma, which I didn't feel like that made sense to the plot or to who she was becoming or her evolution as a person.
Yeah. It kind of almost seemed like in the remake, she was coming to the dance school for a place to hide out or something like that, is kind of the vibe I got. And also, just in terms of like the visuals and the makeup, I much prefer the Marcos of the original. I feel like the remake, they could have made her look like, and I know we've talked about the movie The Witches. They could have made her look like the Grand High Witch. I think that would have been more appealing to me. She looked like Butterball from Hellraiser and a catfish had had a baby, and I just couldn't. I was like, there has to be some sort of appeal somewhere, because this character is supposed to be all knowing, all seeing, all powerful, and this is what we get.
Yeah.
And
it was confusing.
Too,
that ending was
really, it just didn't, it was weird.
I wasn't sure what was going on or what. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just strange.
Yeah.
And it also,
I felt like we didn't get all the information we needed.
Well, and you mentioned too, like the out with the old, in with the new. And I think that really speaks to society's view of the elderly, right? This Marcos woman, she's old, she's about dead. Got to have somebody new come in and replace her because, she doesn't know anything. And in real life, elderly people have a wealth of knowledge and experience. So I was like, that's something to take note of there.
That cut in and out. I think we might have to stop and come back in. I only got elderly.
Oh gosh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Okay, I heard you now, but I didn't hear what you said after that. So let me stop and then we'll see.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna. And we're back. So you'll have to excuse us. There were some witchy vibe interference issues, but we were talking about some things that we see as themes in both Suspiria films, and one that I was trying to mention until there was some interference out there as soon as I mentioned the Marcos lady. Was actually kind of the ageism that's in both films. So I feel like this, as Margaret was saying, out with the old, in with the new. I think that's part of the reason that she looks so old and haggard and things, because they want that visual of getting rid of the old. And I think a lot of the time we hear that, like, oh, this person's old, they don't know what they're talking about. However, a lot of elderly people really have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. And I almost feel like, particularly in the remake, there was such a disservice to her character, because in the original, the coven really had these high expectations and a very substantial level of respect for her, and that's not the vibe that was in the remake.
No, I so appreciate that, right? As you're touching on how older generations are pushed out and not honored for their wisdom, for their knowledge, for what they can share. And so then how they are portrayed as grotesque or obsolete. And so how do we honor that? Which in the original, they're trying to honor her.
Most definitely. And the question of the hour. If you had your choice to live in a Technicolor dream world of Argento, where everything is heightened senses all the time, or to live in Beige land of the remake, which would you pick?
Oh my gosh. I love Argento, but if I had to live in that, I don't know, because he can be very over stimulating. And again, beige is beige. I don't want it beige all the time. I would need a way to like meld the two worlds. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think if I had to choose, I'd probably choose Argento's world. Just, I think, because at least like the sounds, since I have constant like ringing in my ears anyway, I probably wouldn't notice that much. But just like the brightness of the color, I think would be great. And also, like, as you age, it's harder for your, receptors to translate color. So if everything was bright and vibrant, then you would still be able to experience that when you got older.
I love that. Okay, you sold me.
Okay.
Gonna move to Argento.
Yes. We can make a pit stop on the way to Halloween Town.
Yes. I do appreciate this is the first witch movie that wasn't about eating children. And also, I'm really curious because you did say it's a trilogy and it's the Three Mothers trilogy. I wonder if Argento is going off the triple goddess, maiden, mother, crone. So I'm really curious when we watch the other two. Because if we look at his original movie, we have the maiden in Susie. We have the mother in the main dance instructor, the coven. I can't think of her
Madame Blanc
name. Yeah, Madame Blanc, and then the crone.
Yeah. So it'll be kind of cool to see if it stays consistent, or maybe we find out that the films are central to those archetypes. Like maybe Suspiria is one of those archetypes, and then Inferno is another, and Mother of Tears is another. So I think it'll be really fun. I'm excited to watch.
Yes, I am too. More Argento. And listeners, if you want more Argento, more Italian horror, which, and I'm sure can say the word that my dyslexic brain is chopping up into, I can spell it for you, but I can't say it.
Suspiria.
Well, also it's Giallo horror, which is
Oh,
the name
giallo.
for Italian horror.
Yes.
Yeah, giallo horror. If you want more of that, let us know, because we haven't really delved into that, and that is in horror studies. That is a huge part of understanding the horror genre. If you want more Asian horror, let us know, because
Yeah,
we're horror fans, and I
absolutely.
know between our meetings, I'm traveling the world in my horror ventures.
Yeah, and if you want us to take a trip around
Mhm.
the world in 2026 and dedicate sets of cast to, Eastern horror and then Western horror, even to get more into specific countries, Australian horror, Canadian horror, Japanese horror, Italian, French horror, like whatever, please tell us. We would love to discover new things and talk about them. And you never know what you're going to find when you're looking through your stream, or even if you go to like an antique store or an old bookstore and you're looking at the old horror films, it's always just a land of discovery.
Yes. So let us know as we go more into Italian horror, especially Argento, and I wonder if that's what we're hitting on too, is that his horror is Italian. He is
Mm-hmm.
Italian. And I don't know the creator of the new one. He does bring in a German aspect, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing of European descent or something. And
Yeah.
so how those two contrast so differently
Mm-hmm.
and then don't make sense. It's like when Americans redid The Ring or The Grudge,
Yeah.
they lost some of the power, some of the magic of what made those movies work in their
Yeah.
originating countries.
Oh, I agree. And I feel like also, having seen the movie Sinners not too long ago, I think this standard has been set for historical elements that get incorporated into horror films. You have an amazing creator, producer, director that has been orated these tales through their family, continuing traditions, and they're turning this into art and making meaning from it. So now we have that standard that we're holding other films to. So whether the film was produced before or after Sinners, I feel like, at least for me, I have this standard of kind of, why are you commenting on this era? How is this relevant to the story? If you do want it to be relevant, it needs to have a flow that actually involves the viewer somehow.
Yes, I love that you touch on that the creator does it so that we understand. And as you talk about Sinners, I feel like he did his homework. I
Mm-hmm.
recently watched the original Cat People, right? So here is a Serbian immigrant who's
Mm-hmm.
telling the story of Serbian folklore that is impacting her. And I guess the original movie had like a whole war scene that they couldn't incorporate because of censorship. Still, here in this movie, like with Sinners, through the dialogue, we are given the information that we need to know about what is happening so we
Mm-hmm.
understand the characters.
Yeah.
The remake, it was taking place in a time, we're guessing World War I, World War II. There was posters, there was some things
Yeah.
I didn't know. Like, I was like, okay, was he a Nazi? Is he formerly,
Mm-hmm.
or is he Jewish? Like, did he run because his wife was Jewish? Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know. And it could have even been a Star of David, like on his tie or something that, and viewers, listeners, if there was that indication, please let us know, because it's
Mm-hmm.
possible that I missed where he was.
Mm-hmm.
I could say I appreciate he's a German therapist because modern day psychology was
Yeah.
born in Germany, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah. And it was
And it's
very,
not a bad movie.
no, it's not. It's just doesn't align with the original. And as Margaret mentioned, it's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult to distinguish timelines, because at first it's like, oh, okay, is this taking place in the 70s? And then you get further into it and you're like, when in time are we? What is going on? And it's just very choppy and very confusing. And to be honest, I did
Yes,
not
and
put
even
the
a
effort to watch it again. I mean, once was enough.
No. And I think that's what's hard. Like, if you watched this one and only this one, you might really like it. But when you compare it to Argento's, you can't. That's like big shoes to step into, is to try to emulate his work or retell his story with your own twist. And I think Anna's touched on this before, where co-writers or editors or other people involved are around, so that when you have your original story, somebody can say, that's great, let's pare it down. You're trying to put way too much into one movie. Let's take out some elements. Let's think about maybe a second movie. You're trying to cram too much into this movie.
100%. Totally agree. Oh, and who do you most relate to?
The dog? Who do you most relate to?
The good question.
The housekeeper in the second one, the one that the assistant to the therapist lady.
Yeah, maybe I'm not sure. I feel like it was kind of difficult. Maybe just some random person in the subway. I don't know. Just like, oh, I'm here. I don't really know what's going on. I'm just trying to live my life. I'm here. Like, probably that.
Yes. I feel like you touch on the strong personalities that both films have. The second one, they're strong personalities, but they don't come across that way. They're subtly strong.
Yeah.
Personalities, where in the first one, you have a lot of strong women.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just I think the first one for me is a great film. The remake, I watched it. I can check it off my list. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I watched it. I can check it off my list.
Yeah. But stay tuned, because there is a trilogy related to the first one, and we will talk about Inferno and Mother of Tears very, very soon. And in the meantime, since we're talking about witchy stuff, make sure you drink your buru habru, drink your coffin cookies. I mean, you could liquefy them. Try to eat your coffin cookies if you can.
Yes.
Howl at the moon and stay spooky.
Yes, don't forget, like, subscribe, follow, comment. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll catch you at the next one.
Bye-bye.